Welcome back to another video. Today I want to provide an update on the rutabaga and turnip overwintering experiment that I had done. I'll link to a previous video of what I did back in December, with where I was trying some different ideas out to see if the turnips and rutabagas could withstand a zone 6A winter. So the results are pretty interesting. Okay, so here we have the bed of turnips. I had two turnip plants here that I was trying to overwinter. The larger plant, the one with the larger turnip, actually did not make it, which was interesting. It's this one here that you can't really see because it's so decomposed now, and I think a vole ate like half of it. So that particular plant did not make it. I'm wondering too if, because of the grass clippings that I had put on top, if it made it too much of an anaerobic environment and made the fruit more prone to spoilage and rot. Not the fruit, but the root. The other turnip, on the other hand, has turned up quite well. You can see it's got nice and green foliage coming up this early in the season. I think almost in mid-April. The young leaves are totally edible, raw or cooked. I like to eat them raw. A little bit. If I was going to eat a larger amount, I might try to steam them lightly or something. They have a nice mustardy, slightly bitter flavor about them. Definitely something you could add to a salad or something else. Maybe an omelet or something if you're into that. I don't know. I'm wondering if the other one didn't quite make it because the grass kind of prevented the oxygen and the gas exchange from going on from the air into the soil and vice versa. So I'm wondering if in the fall, if I had put down a layer of soil on top of the turnips, and then I put some grass on top, and then of course, and then I put the leaves and everything else after that. But if that soil would have helped to add a layer of protection from things getting wet, like when the grass clippings get wet, and then they decompose, and so they compress and become almost airtight. If you've ever had to clean the bottom of a lawnmower, you will probably be very familiar with that. You have to use a screwdriver sometimes to be able to pry these mats of like grass clippings from the bottom of the deck. So I'm wondering if a little bit more of aeration may have helped. I may try to add in some compost on top now. So hopefully I can get some seeds off of this, some viable seeds. So I have to try and support the reproductive growth of this plant as much as possible. All right, let's go check out the turnips. And by turnips, I meant rutabagas. Of course, in certain areas of the world, those two words are used interchangeably at times. But here, there is a very important distinction. As they are two separate plants, they are related, but definitely two distinctly separate plants. I'm going to kind of zoom in on this one. It's showing some really good growth. So here we have a rutabaga. Again, it's overwintered pretty well. I did move some of the leaves and such away from it, and I've been watering it a little bit more consistently as it's been warming up and such. And even though the initial buds at the top of the turnip plant, of the rutabaga plant, did die off, brown, wilt, and kind of rot, off of the root it's sprouted some new shoots of green leaves. So that was really nice, really good, promising sign. It survived the winter, which really says something in this zone 6 climate, especially with the winter that we just had earlier this year, because we had like this perma snow layer almost, at least from February into the beginning of March. And these rutabagas and the turnip plant, they really toughed it out and successfully overwintered. So I'm going to try to get some seeds out of these. I'm not totally sure if the two species would cross-pollinate. Hopefully not. I'd like to try to preserve the two strains as much as possible, but we'll have to see how that goes. They may also have different pollination times, like one may sprout up and flower earlier than the other one does. I may also be able to play a part in that, in like really over-fertilizing one and watering it more than I do the other one to try and speed up the growth and the process. I don't know. So a few of them did sustain a little bit of vole damage. You can see this one here. You can see this one here. You know, voles have nibbled away on it a little bit. But even so, there might be a few sprouts coming up on it. And so it still may sprout and grow. I also had some rutabagas in the cold frame. Those sprouted up earlier. The one looked like it had died. That would be the one that's on the right. It looked like it had died and completely wilted over and was brown and everything. Later on in March, it sprouted up anyway, and so I do have 2 successful overwintered rutabaga plants in the cold frame as well. They may be about a week or so ahead of the others. Whoops. But these, but of course, these plants I did uproot and transplant later on. I think it was even in December last year. So, you know, there may be a little bit of transplant shock as well to deal with now as they're trying to grow, but also develop their root systems as well. Here we have a rutabaga plant. You can see the rutabaga itself down here. It's pretty large. And it has sent up flowering shoots. Nice large leaves, by the way. You can essentially eat them as you would kale. And it sent up these flowering shoots with yellow 4-petaled flowers. Of course, it's in the mustard family, so that is a classic aspect of plants in this family. Now they're starting to set pods. So yeah, these rutabagas have successfully overwintered and are absolutely thriving now. And then here we have the 2 rutabaga plants that I transplanted in here back in December in the cold frame, and these guys have survived and are setting flower and pods as well. Alright, so here we are back at the turnip plant a month or 2 later, and it has now finished flowering for the most part, and it's sending out and filling out the seed pods that I will hopefully be able to collect soon, probably maybe in a few weeks, maybe a month, or even a couple of them starting to dry up right now. But you'll notice that I have somewhat secured it. We've had a pretty windy spring over here, so it did kind of get bent over, and with tallness and the weight of the plant, kind of dictated the need for some extra support. So I have some twine wrapped around most of the plant, attached to a stake or 2 here, and that seems to be holding up pretty well for now. You know, maybe you could use a tomato cage, or if you had a bunch of them in a row, you might be able to you know, support them with some fencing along the row. The flowering tops, of course, the flower buds are all edible. The pods, the seeds, I'm sure you could probably use to make some sort of mustard type condiment. Maybe I'll experiment with that sometime. The foliage is starting to die back now, as all of the energy is now going into the future generations, right? The production of the seed pods, the seeds. The plant is, you know, kind of in its final days, its final weeks. It really toughed it out with this winter that was pretty harsh. We had a lot of snow, a lot of permanent snow, and it had such an array of beautiful flowers earlier this year as well, attracting beneficial pollinators and everything like that. There's also a catnip plant growing off to the side of it down here. It actually just sprouted up on its own, so that is a welcome addition to the garden. Alright, so here we have the rutabagas. They're still in flower now. At this point, they're really starting to bear down on the pod production and fill, and the maturation of the seeds hopefully soon to come. So you can kind of tell the flower buds are kind of past their apex of production, of productivity, and I really want to concentrate the plant's energy on the pod and seed production at this point. So usually what I'll do is I'll take the tip of one of these flowering spikes, and you can just eat this, but I'll just kind of pick them off every now and then. That way I'm trying to help reduce the overall stress of the plant, and more of its energy can go into focusing on the pods and the seeds, now that there are so many of them, because I don't want these plants to overextend themselves and then succumb to any type of predation or disease unnecessarily, or with weaker or not as many matured seeds. They haven't seem to need too much extra support. They're all kind of growing together. They kind of help hold each other up in a way, I guess, too. But it's fairly sturdy stalk, and I'm really excited to hopefully get a good harvest of seed off of these rutabaga plants. Alright, so that'll wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, got something from it. I may do an update later on in the season once the seeds begin to mature, and we can go through that whole process of seed collection and harvesting and preparation for storing them for next year. So maybe stay tuned for a video about that. That may be coming out maybe in the next month or two. We'll see how things go. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video.